Hi everyone, my name's Laura and I'm the Specky Seamstress. Welcome back to my channel. Now today I'm going to be talking to you about my sewing resolutions or resolutions for 2021. Now I did mention that I was going to be doing 3 vlogs to update you on makes that I had made in the latter half of 2020, and I said the third one was going to be about the Made It Patterns Go, cami and dress, but I've actually already talked about that in the recent Makes Dresses edition video, which I will link down below, so I don't need to talk to you about it again because it already exists. I got a little bit messed up with my timings of what I'd shown you and what I hadn't, so apologies, but so the 2 videos that you've seen have updated you on what I made at the last half of 2020, and now we can start talking about 2021. Which is exciting. I suppose I should say Happy New Year, although this will now be my 3rd video of the year. But Happy New Year all the same. We've caught up with 2020 and we're moving on to be the current year. So I don't normally set New Year's resolutions. I'm not a big New Year's person, if I'm honest. I tend to, if I want to do something, I will try and do it when I decide I want to do it. But the new year is a good time for reflection, and I think having set up the business in kind of September to November last year, and then spent a bit of December actually catching up on things that I wanted to sew, because I felt like throughout September to November I was just sort of, I had to just keep going. I didn't really get a lot of chance to kind of sit back and reflect and think about things. So I actually kind of naturally ended up thinking and reflecting a little bit about my sewing kind of goals anyway, which happily coincided with the new year. I think also I moved into this new sewing room and had a lot of thoughts about, you know, what sewing kind of habits I wanted to get into and what I wanted to sew and how I wanted to plan my sewing, and then I moved into the big sewing room, and then like 3 weeks later I decided to start a business. So all of that kind of thinking and reflecting about what I wanted to do with the new sewing room sort of got messed into a big rush of busy while I sorted everything out. So actually about a week ago I tidied the sewing room for the first time in like 3 months, and it just felt amazing to just be able to walk in here and there not be boxes and stuff everywhere, because while the crowdfunder orders were being fulfilled and I had a big custom order of bias binding to fulfill as well before the end of the year, there was just always stuff associated with that around. But now I've been able to actually think about how much space I need for the business things and put them in appropriate places around the sewing room, so they're not just in the doorway or next to the table or on the table. I've got this beautiful sewing table with, you know, 4 big craft mats, and I think for about 3 or 4 months only like 1 of them was visible, which is ridiculous. So I kind of tidied up, and I think there's all been a natural point for me to think about what I want to do and how I want to sew. So it's been quite nice that it's all coincided, and I've actually written down 10, although there's kind of like 10, well yeah, no, 10, some of them have subparts. You know, sorry. 10 resolutions for the year, but they're not really, I don't set things like I will make 10 of these by this time. They're more kind of how I want to approach the year, I guess. So the first one is quite a practical one. There's a real mix in here of quite practical and a bit more, I was going to say strategic. I don't really know where that came from, but slightly more big picture, I suppose. But the first one is a practical one. I am going to change my overlocker threads for my projects so that they look as nice as they can on the insides. I just don't do it enough. In fact, this is the first time I've done this. I've been making myself a pair of cozy, comfy jogging bottoms to wear around the house that are fleece lined, so I'm super warm. And I was like, I have dark green overlocker thread. I'm going to change it to dark green overlocker thread. I don't have all of the colours under the sun, but I am going to make a bit more of an effort to make sure that I'm matching my threads to my makes where I can. Now, I'm not horrendous at this. I tend to switch between cream and black, which are both up there that you can see, you know, like for light and dark. But I do have some other colours and I should use them more. So that is something I'm going to do. And kind of linked to that, I'm going to clean my machines more. Now, I say they're linked to that because I do tend to clean my machines when I change my thread. I mean, okay, maybe not my main machine every time I change my thread, but my overlocker, I tend to change my thread and clean the machine at the same time. And when you're not doing that very often, you're not cleaning your machine very often, and that's not great. Although I did choose to clean my machine, my overlocker, when I changed my threads. Oh, this is not going to come off now. It'll be nice, is it? Just before I sewed with fleece lined French terry, and it's going to be all fluffy again, so I do need to clean it again, but never mind. Such is life. But yeah, so I need to just keep on top a little bit more of my machine maintenance. I'm gonna make sure that I am changing the needle regularly on my main machine, which is on because I've been sewing this morning, and just generally kind of take care of my equipment a little bit better. I'm not generally that bad at that, but I think in the last half of 2020 I have been, so I just want to try and keep on top of that. So they're the first two. Number 3 links to something I spoke about in the, was it the last video where I did a bit of a whistle-stop tour of my end of 2020 makes. So I will consistently share the size I make, the adjustments I make, and the fabric requirements that I needed to make what I made. That was a lot of make and made in there. So linked to the discussions around size inclusivity in the sewing pattern world that have been going on. Something I've really noticed, and something that I think is very tangible that lots of us can do, is share the size we make. I know that not everyone will feel comfortable doing that, and that's okay, but I think if you are comfortable, and if you're comfortable sharing your measurements on your Instagram profile, which lots of us do, if you're on Instagram, I think it's just really nice, because if I'm flicking through a hashtag of a pattern, I like to be able to see what size range people like, what body shapes people. I'm not wording this very well, but I think it's important that if we are sharing pictures of ourselves across a broad range of bodies, that we share what size we're making it in, because it helps us decide, oh, okay, that pattern company might come up a little bit small or a little bit big, or that style looks like this on this type of body and this size of body. And I think that that's a very useful thing. I also think that, well, I don't think this, I find it very frustrating when I'm looking at a pattern company's website and they don't say what size their model is wearing. Because I see it a lot in the, we've extended our size ranges, isn't this great? Here is a curvy model wearing a curvy size range make, but they don't tell me what size it is. And I just can't judge. And I used to find this very frustrating when I was buying ready to wear clothes as well. I want to know what size the model is wearing. And I think it's something we really need to work on in the sewing community. And I think it's something that some of the smaller, and I say smaller, and I don't really mean smaller, I don't think, some of the US and Australian based Facebook popular pattern companies, I'm talking about Patterns for Pirates, Made by Jack's Mum, Made for Mermaids, Pattern Emporium, Rad Patterns, 5 out of 4 patterns. I find that they are better at showing their pattern testers on their website, all of the pattern testers and the sizes they made and the fabrics they used and then the alterations they made. And that makes for a much more accessible and inclusive listing of a pattern, because I can go and say, this person in my size made this in a viscose jersey and it looks like this, and it just helps, I think, us visualize everything better. And I think that that's a very important thing that we need to be asking pattern companies to do. So certainly I'm going to be reaching out to pattern companies that I have either pattern tested for in the past or worked with in the past to do this. And also I'm going to be asking when new releases come out for pattern companies to do this. And also I'm going to be asking when I pattern test for anyone, if I do pattern test at all this year, that is the case, because I think that it is a tangible thing that we can do to support kind of increase in accessibility and inclusivity of sewing, which is really important. So I am going to be doing that. I also, on this kind of topic, it's not really a resolution, but I think there are things that other parts of the sewing community could do better. I think that I'm talking for too long about this. Perhaps I'll make a video specifically about this and wrap up there. But I will be consistently sharing the size I make and the fabric it took, because I think that's important. Linked to this though, I will support pattern companies who have better size ranges. So I've talked about this already a little bit in my previous vlog. I would love to hear from you with suggestions of pattern companies. I'm sure there are absolutely loads out there that I haven't heard of, or I'm unaware of, that they've increased their size ranges. So do let me know, because I'm really always interested to see new pattern companies. And also, if I make something from a company that doesn't have a large size range, I will make that known, whether I'm posting on Instagram or talking to you on here. Okay, we'll move away from that slightly. Another practical one, I guess. I would like to use and organise my patterns and scraps better. That's a big challenge. I have done some piecework, as I was showing you in my festive sewing plans video, and I'm really excited to show you that make, because I love it. But I want to have a look at what I can do with colour blocking this year. I want to make myself some more underwear, so I want to kind of use up some of my smaller scraps for knickers. I want to make some scrappy pants because I've got so many scraps and I just don't need them. And I also, one of the things I'm going to do, I was going to do it before I went back to work, but it's not going to happen, is I need to go through my giant box of patterns and be brutal, get rid of the ones I'm not going to make. What's the point in keeping them? And also just kind of go through the paper patterns that I've traced and work out how best to store them. Probably buy another one of those big giant A3, A2, whatever they are, folders that I've used and shown you before, and just categorise them a bit better, I think, so they're easier to find. And then I've got some, well, no, should I go for another practical one? I'll go for another practical one. I don't even know what number this is now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that right? 6. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 6. I am going to learn to use my rolled hem foot, which I bought about a year ago and is still in the packaging. And there's several things I want to use it on. And if I'm going to make the beautiful silk into something, rolled hem foot might be useful. I also have a couple of silk scarves that I want to make. So yes, I'm going to learn to use my rolled hem foot. Hold me accountable for that because I need to do it. And then I've got some slightly more bigger picture things. So I'm going to take a bit more time to do hand sewing properly. I put off hand sewing as much as physically possible, but in the last 3 things that I've made, which are all cardigans, I have done some hand stitching because I knew that it would be a much nicer finish, and actually I quite enjoyed it. And I was quite proud of myself that I enjoyed it, because I feel like it's something that I always aspire to but never actually sit and have the patience to do. So my trousers this year may well have hand sewn hems. I've never done that before because I'm just too lazy. Not too lazy, I prioritise other things and I want to get them done, but actually sitting and having some mindful hand sewing to do is yeah, I've really enjoyed it, so I'm hoping that continues, and I'm going to take the time to encourage that. I'm also going to make the patterns that I keep putting off. You know, I cannot be the only one that says, oh, I really want to make this, but then you never quite get around to doing it. And I spoke in my festive sewing plans video about making the AK Patterns Adriana skirt, which it was in that category 1000%, and I made it. And I love it, and it's made me realise that there are other patterns like that I really need to sew. Like, I really need to sew them. So in particular, I'm thinking the Jessica blazer and the Sicily slip dress, but also the assembly line patterns wrap jacket, which I don't actually know where the pattern has gone, but I will find it and make it. And there are a number of others, and I might run a little series throughout the year talking about actually sewing the patterns that I want to sew and keep putting off, because we all need a bit of encouragement sometimes, don't we, to start the project that in some way scares us. And it might scare us because it's difficult sewing wise, which is the Jessica for me, but it might scare me because of fitting, or like it's not going to suit me, or it's a new technique, or just something makes you a little bit nervous. And sometimes I put something on a bit of a pedestal, I think, and I'm like, oh, that's going to be so amazing, but then I don't make it because I'm like, oh, but what if it isn't so amazing? Brains. Interesting things. So I'm also going to, on that kind of vein, I want to be braver with my precious fabrics. And I talked about this slightly in my was it my Montrose, one of my vlogs this week, about being braver wearing the clothes that I've made with precious fabrics, because they don't just have to be for posh events. We should have learned that in 2020, definitely. But also through to wearing the things that I've made from precious fabrics on a more regular basis. So that's number 9. And number 10 is something that I think I've learned a lot about in 2020, and particularly towards the end of 2020. I think I'm gonna explain it first and say it, or say it first and explain it. I'm gonna be more comfortable with what I can make, but choose not to, for any number of reasons. Now, let me explain what I mean. I think that when you're creative and crafty, it's very easy to look at things and say, I can make that. Oh, and you end up with a list of 30,000 things that you want to make at some point in your life. And you may well do, but you also may well not. And it may provide quite a lot, or maybe a source of quite a lot of overwhelm and stress, if you have lots of things on your list that aren't really the craft that you do, but you think that you can do them, which you probably can, but never quite reaches the top of your priority list. And I think that I learned a lot about this during 2020 while trying to support some small businesses who were obviously having a very tough year. And I think I realised that supporting a small business who was making something that I wanted and probably could make but didn't choose to, because I didn't have time, because I didn't have all of the right resources, because I would have to learn a new skill, and it probably wouldn't be as good as somebody who was selling it anyway, because of any number of those reasons, that it's good to support other people that are doing it. So I bought myself some knickers from Sewing Wild Seams this year, because I needed new knickers, and I kept saying, well, I'll make some, and I never did. And although I'm sure at some point I will, sit down and spend a day doing it, those knickers from Sewing Wild Seams are great. So I'm very pleased to have supported her business and got myself some nice pants. But also I think during the run up to Christmas, I didn't make any handmade gifts this year, but I bought some really beautiful things from small businesses who have great products. And I don't know, it's such a simple, silly thing, but I think that we all probably need a bit of a reminder of that sometimes, that it's okay not to make everything. And yeah, something I've done is so there's a company called Sew Unconventional, and they make kids clothes and other things as well, but I'm going to buy a pair of slippers from them, because I've tried to make slippers a couple of times. I can't get them nice and neat. It makes me a bit frustrated. I like slippers. So I'm going to get myself a pair. And yeah, I think that it's just something that I need to remind myself and be mindful of continuing, hopefully through some level of normality being restored in 2021, that I don't need to make all of the things, and that I can, buy some things. sometimes if I want to. Yeah, so I'm going to end on that note, which is not really a sewing resolution, I suppose, but sort of is. But there are 10 things that I want to achieve over the course of the year. I think that none of them are huge other than the scrap issue, I think. So yeah, I'm quite pleased. I'm thinking about getting them printed and put them up on my wall. I have a little sewing room rules sheet here that sits right above my machines, and I think I might get it printed and put it somewhere so that I can kind of physically see it and be reminded of it all the time. I'd love to know what you think of those resolutions. Do you think they're reasonable, practical, achievable, and what you're planning for 2021? I don't think I'm going to do a Make 9 this year, because last year I did a Make 9 and I talked more about skills I wanted to achieve and learn, and that was really helpful for me. It was much more approachable approachable a goal than 9 garments, because I sew quite a lot of garments, and I found it quite challenging to do that the previous year. But I do want to talk a little bit more about the outfits that I'm trying to plan and like the styles that I'm cultivating. That sounds a bit, don't know. You know what I mean, the styles that I'm going for this year, because I think I'm going to see myself making a lot of pattern repeats this year. You know, a few patterns lots of times that I can mix and match together to create Laura outfits. So yeah, I might talk a little bit more about that in another vlog, but yeah, I'd love to hear what your plans are for 2021 and whether you're making any resolutions of your own. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, bye!